Hello everyone, this is Fu, and I'm going to tell you about Star Ctizen's multi-crew ship system. Star Ctizen has already been a groundbreaking game in so many areas, but one area in particular that has everyone excited is its implementation of the multi-crew system. Having localized physics grids on individual ships is pretty amazing in of itself, but one problem that a lot of games have when it comes to putting multiple players inside one object is what those players do. This is Star Ctizen we're talking about here, and being that it is what most people would call a space simulator, it takes place in space. Novel concept there. Space is big. Space is large. There's a lot of space between one point of interest and the next. And we already know this because if you've played 2.0 or above, you've played the Crusader map, which is 2 million by 2 million by 400,000 kilometers in size. And that's what the developers at Cloud Imperium Games say is a small map. Someone on Reddit did a test to fly from one end of the map to the other without quantum driving, basically just stuck it in cruise mode, and it took something like 14 hours, if I remember, to get from one end to the other. It's insane. Now, I know there is quantum drive, in which you can go 0.2 c, or 1/5 the speed of light, to help you along, but if you check out the star map on the RSI website, which you should check out, it's amazing, you can see that it could still take a long time for you to get from one place to another, wherever it may be. So with that being said, what the hell will you and your crew be doing on a ship when you have long distances to travel? They put beds in most ships for a reason, right? Well, that's part of the genius with the guys over at CIG. They're designing multi-crew ships so that everyone can be heavily involved in the operations of the ship to maximize the usefulness of it. A lot of what I'm about to tell you isn't really quite implemented yet, but it's rather their vision for what the game should play like when it's fully released. Given the track record of CIG, I believe them 100% when they say these things. A couple of the components are in right now at very basic levels, so we do have a small glimpse as to how things will interact and play out. So what is a multi-crew ship? Simply put, a multi-crew ship is any ship designed to carry more than one player. That is, it has spots for other players to either man stations or take seats. Examples of multi-crew ships are the obvious big guys that you can fly right now, like the Constellation and the Retaliator, but also ships like the Super Hornet, which is technically a multi-crew ship as it has a seat designated for the top turret gunner. The Cutlass would also be another example of a multi-crew ship because it has many spots for players to sit inside its bay. Now, CIG has mentioned that keeping players busy and giving them physical roles within the multi-crew ships is a very high priority for them. They don't want to hand out too much of the responsibilities over to the AI, making the game rather monotonous. So this is really great for us as players, not only because we get to play individual roles and have the freedom to do what we want, but it also adds a sense of immersion and connection with the ship that you're interacting with. It's no longer just some machine that helps you achieve your goals, but rather a living, breathing concept that you invest your heart and soul into in order to get the best out of it. In other words, the limitations of the ships aren't hard-coded into the system of the game, but rather the limitations lay in tandem with your crew's abilities and your individual abilities. The experience becomes much more organic and you feel attached. So let's get into the meat of the multi-crew systems and roles. Much of what I'm going to tell you is taken from a letter from the chairman post. For those of you who don't know, Chris Roberts, the main maestro orchestrating the development of this game, comes out with a letter about once a month explaining his thoughts on how development is going, while shedding light on any problems they've had in the process, as well as future visions and explanations for the game. Back in December of 2014, he released a letter to the chairman post explaining multi-crew systems. Here's my explanation of what he posted. So we'll start off with crew stations. Crew stations are physical objects that the player interacts with. This could be a console, a turret, or manually fixing and replacing modules. Depending on the situation, you could be sitting or standing for these roles. The screen sizes for interacting with consoles will be the same size, or at least proportion, so as to have fluidity and to simplify the implementation of the systems. Most stations will grant the ability to interact with multiple systems through one UI. Not all stations will grant the same access to the same systems though. This means that one station could allow you to interact with the radar system and the power management system, while another station adjacent to it could allow you to interact with the radar system and the shield management system. But what type of systems are there? Well, let's go through them. Starting off, we have shield management. This role is rather self-explanatory. It grants the user a more robust level of control over how the ship's shields are managed. This is great to have, as trying to appropriate the shields to the correct side or sides of a ship can be very difficult for a pilot to do while undergoing evasive maneuvering. In this role, the player handling shield management will have many responsibilities, including reinforcing shield segments, which will maximize the effectiveness of your shield placement, as well as prioritizing recharge positions should the shields get damaged. Along with the recharge, the player will have the option to boost the recharge of a shield segment that has been damaged. What the cost of this boost is yet to be determined, but I'm going to speculate that it has some negative effect on the generator's output. Lastly, the player will be able to tune the generator to prioritize one of three main areas: shield strength, recharge rate, or recovery time. Let's break these down for what those three mean. So first off, we have shield strength, which is really pretty simple. It's the strength of your shield. It's how well your shields will hold up to damage before they're depleted. A stronger shield will last longer than a weaker shield, thus doing a better job in keeping your ship's hull and physical components from being damaged longer. Next, we have recharge rate. This is the rate at which your depleted shields will recharge to their maximum strength, given that the shields are in a recharge status. This status is important as it differentiates itself from the next area, which is recovery time. Recovery time is how long it takes for a shield to begin its recharge status. What it looks like is this. Say you're in a battle and you took damage from your port side shields. For the sake of simplicity, let's say that port side shield is now at about 50% when you manage to quantum drive away to safety. Before your port side shield begins recharging, there will be a recovery time. I'm going to make up a number, but let's just say it takes 12 seconds before your shield starts regenerating. Those 12 seconds are part of the recovery time. Now let's say that once your recharge status has taken effect, your shields that were once 50% got to 100% after 20 seconds. That is the recharge rate, how quickly it went from 50 to 100 once the recharge status took effect. Just having these three components to a very simple system shows why having a multi-crew ship could be so damned effective. You would have to be a magician to juggle between an in-flight battle with another ship and properly handling just your shields at the same time. Remember, this is just one system, so let's move on to the next one. Radar Ops. Those in control of radar ops will be easing the load of the pilot by taking over identification of targets. According to RSI, this will expand to being able to give commands to other members as well. What they mean by that, I do not particularly know, but I would hope it would include something like this. Let's say you have a crew of 4 inside a constellation. You have a top gunner, you've got a bottom gunner, someone commanding the radar ops, and of course, a pilot. Now let's say this crew got into a battle with multiple pirates while trying to haul a small amount of precious cargo. There's multiple targets to shoot at, so hopefully the expanded role of the radar operator will include assigning multiple targets to different positions. Think of it like this. Top gunner, prioritize this target, and bottom gunner, prioritize this other target. Pilot, focus on getting us through the asteroid field by following my plotted waypoints. All at the same time. It's like something straight out of a movie, and it would be really cool to keep the crew involved. Now, not all actions will be focused on battling. The radar ops player can also focus their radar array, increasing the strength and ability to find signals, but narrowing the field of view of the radar to find potentially hidden targets. Not only that, but you can also find subsystems on larger ships to prioritize them as a target. Rather than going ham on a large ship and hoping for the best, the radar operator can logistically plan an attack to disable the ship's shield, then comms, then find and prioritize attacks on weaker points of the ship. That's just an example. The radar operator will also be able to flag opponents that are weaker to help those shooting pew-pews identify which target they should go for. Along with this, the radar operator can flag friendlies and shady players as well. A simple example that includes both of these would be something like, "Hey, we found Tom after he ejected from his ship, but there's an Avenger not too far away, and Tom said that he shot at him. Keep an eye on him while we pick Tom up." That's an example. Next up is EWAR, or Electronic Warfare. Now, Electronic Warfare is the first of the systems that hasn't really been implemented at all. The only thing close to it so far is the Avenger Warlock, which actually has an EMP pulse that can shut down other ships' systems until the ship is able to reboot them. The EWAR mechanic will be expanded much more in the future though, and they have outlined 4 areas I'm dubbing the 4 Ds. Dampening, disruption, disabling, and debuffing. They can affect other players in different ways. Dampening reduces the effective range of the targeted player's systems. If your scanner works to 2 kilometers out, dampening could effectively reduce the range to something much lower, say 500 meters. Disruption. Disrupting the player's systems will keep that system from working properly. Rather than simply lowering the 2 kilometer scanner range I mentioned earlier, disrupting that scanner would effectively stop it from working at all. Once the disruption is disabled, the system will function as normal. Disabling. This takes disruption to a further level. Not only would it cause the previously mentioned scanner to stop working, but in order for the scanner to start working again, the player whose scanner was disabled would have to completely restart that scanner, taking up additional valuable time. The fourth D is debuffing. Debuffing is a tactic that can be used to further hinder the chosen target's ability to defend itself from future E-War actions. Some examples of physically based E-War components are something like data spike missiles. Those establish a direct link to target computers, allowing the player to control the targeted ship's critical systems like propulsion, weapons, shields, etc. This is especially useful for pirates looking to capture ships that will still remain intact so they can fly them away. To stay safe from E-War attacks, CIG is implementing defensive components for you to defend yourself. Things like EM flares and data chaffs will be put into the game as replacements to standard flares and chaffs for simple defensive mechanisms. Going further in the types of systems that Star Ctizen will have, we have the communications system. Not much is said about this other than having the ability to communicate to nearby ships to transfer information, hold a conference, or simply chat to one another. More advanced communication systems will allow two ships to dock to one another via a docking ring. Next up is fuel. There will be a number of options available to you through the fuel system. This can get quite complex because it can actually cover the entire fuel processing mechanic, but I'm not going to get into that right now. On a basic level, the fuel system will allow you to appropriate which tank is enabled to be refueled with one of the ship's hydrogen scoops. We also have scanning. Scanning is what will be used to find information for a variety of things. Scanning will mostly be used by those looking for materials to mine, but also to find wormholes, planet information, and other points of interest. Avionics and CPU. This part is pretty interesting to me and really neat in my opinion. This system allows the player to prioritize certain aspects within the ship's CPU. Right now, information is pretty vague, but examples given are things like reducing the lock-on time for your missiles. Next up, we have power management. A very rudimentary system for this is already in place. As of right now, you can prioritize power to one of three areas: shields, weapons, and thrusters. If you want your shields to regenerate better and be stronger, you can prioritize power to them at the cost of depleting power to your thrusters and weapons, which will lower your maneuverability and cause any laser-based weapon to overheat much quicker. And for the last system of this video, we have navigation. I gave an example earlier about a radar operator who would possibly be part of this. A player in control of navigation will be able to plot out a series of waypoints to plan a route for the pilots, either long-term or short-term. The nice thing about this is that by plotting your course, the ship's computer can estimate the amount of time it would take and the amount of fuel needed so that you can prioritize your trip to your liking. As you can see, there is a lot going on and a lot planned for the future of Star Ctizen, especially in regard to the multi-crew functions available to players. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited to see just how in-depth these systems can be in order to keep players involved and to actually feel like part of a crew that makes a ship so special. The most recently implemented components have been shields and coolers. There are actually multiple shields and coolers that you can buy for your ship right now by going to the Voyager Direct Store on the RSI website and using UEC or REC credits. So you can already test some of these things out and look at the varying degrees of functionality as far as their performance goes. We just don't have access to all the fine-tuning details that is still on its way to Star Ctizen. Well, that pretty much wraps up the video. If I forgot anything or if you have any recommended resources for information, please feel free to leave a comment below. If you liked the video and the information I provided, or at least you thought something might have been helpful, please like, and I will always appreciate a subscribe as well. I still have plenty of more videos to come, especially relating to Star Ctizen. I know there's a lot of information out there and it's a lot of stuff to read. I'll do the reading for you and give you the information. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.